This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Ethiopia prepares for national dialogue to resolve political differences. South Africa's parliament fire suspect granted bail. Somalia repatriates over 90 detained migrants from Libya. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. In sports, Egypt eyeing first win at the Africa Cup of Nations when they face Guinea-Bissau. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. Let's begin in South Africa, where lawyers for the man accused of torturing South Africa's parliament in an alleged terror attack on the 2nd of January say the wheels of justice are finally turning in the right direction. This was after Western Cape Judge President John Flofé granted the accused opportunity to apply for bail next week. Renee Delcaram reports.
49-year-old Zandile Christmas Mafe, who many say has been living rough on the streets of Cape Town for the past few years, was arrested on the day the fire at Parliament broke out. He faces charges of terrorism for unlawfully and intentionally placing, discharging or detonating an explosive or other lethal device at Parliament. And the state is strongly opposed to him getting out on bail.
There's a couple of issues, reasons that we are opposing bail. It's a serious charges that the accused is facing. We've got a strong case against him, so we'll oppose bail.
The matter will be back in the Western Cape High Court on Tuesday, the 18th, when Zandile Mafe's defense counsel will challenge an earlier ruling by a lower court to send him to a Cape Town psychiatric hospital for 30 days observation.
In our law in South Africa, you can never remand someone in custody for purposes of bail application for more than 7 days. Law says 7 days at a time. And when we were there in Magistrate Court, the remand was the remand of 30 days, which is very unlawful. It's very unusual, so unconstitutional when one's liberty is curtailed.
Mafe and his supporters are adamant that he's been wrongfully arrested and is being framed.
I came to court to support my friend Zandile because I know he's innocent, because there's no way that he will burn Parliament down.
We are saying hands off Mr. Zandile Christmas Mafe, because Mr. Mafe is a scapegoat. Mr. Mafe is seen as a fall person. It cannot be that a man like Mr. Mafe, who is homeless, who's poor, who's black, can just easily walk into a national key point, burn it, and move out again.
Mr. Mafe's crime is being African and poor. Mr. Mafe must be freed.
Mafe's bail application will be heard a week from now. And the investigation continues as authorities try to determine if there are other people involved in plotting and executing the attack on South Africa's parliament. Renee Delcaram, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
Ethiopia is preparing to stage a national dialogue. The process aims to resolve political differences, including over the ongoing civil war in the northern Tigray region. Ahead of the national dialogue, the government has released a number of political prisoners. As CGTN's Groom Chala reports, opposition leaders are already proposing a new national constitution.
Preparations are now underway by Ethiopian authorities to stage the much anticipated all-inclusive national dialogue. Addis Ababa believes this would be a forum that can deliver key answers to sticking political questions and differences of the country.
We have worked alongside other stakeholders for the upcoming all-inclusive national dialogue to be a story of success. We expect this dialogue to guarantee long-lasting peace, and all stakeholders have deliberated on which kinds of decisive political measures should be taken. These discussions, intended to successfully hold the national dialogue, took ample time and were held between the parties and the government.
In preparation for the talks, Ethiopia has released dozens of well-known political prisoners. High-profile names include Jawar Mohammed and Iskender Nega. In the latest press conference since his release from prison, Iskender said his party will demand a change of the current Ethiopian constitution.
The main agenda we'll present in the national dialogue is a change of the existing constitution of the country. One cannot make any dictator regime into a democratic one through any reforms. There is no such global experience. Those nations which transformed from dictatorship to democracy have devised a new constitution.
Addis Ababa promises the national dialogue will be democratic and transparent.
Based on its last experience, the government is building strong institutions, and these institutions are working freely, basing themselves on the national interest of the people.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has promised a national dialogue to bring all political stakeholders together to discuss grievances which include regional border issues, the question of identity, constitutional reforms and amendments, among other issues. Grumtala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Let's turn our attention to Mali, where thousands protested across cities, including the capital Bamako on Friday, in response to calls for demonstrations by the military junta over further sanctions imposed on the nation by ECOWAS. The regional bloc imposed the sanctions in response to delayed elections in Mali that had been previously set for February. The military, however, proposed staying in power for up to 5 years before staging the polls. The fresh sanctions have been supported by France, the United States, and the European Union. Despite the pressure, many in Mali have rallied behind the military junta. Colonel Assimi Goïta, who first took power in a coup in August 2020, has dubbed the sanctions as inhumane and extreme.
We have come for the cause of the country. Let everyone come out. Let all the Muslims come out to support the country.
As a Malian proverb says, when the tam-tam sounds and calls the sons of the country, we answer the call. That's why I'm here. Mali has called everyone today. All the children of Mali came out in response today, as our national anthem says.
Moving to Uganda, where at least 5 pupils have died and several others wounded after fires gutted 2 dormitories at separate schools in the country. The incident occurred barely a week after schools reopened after 2 years of closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Leon Sienge reports.
Police say 4 pupils died after fire gutted their dormitory at a school in the capital, Kampala. The fire started at around 3 a.m. on Saturday morning, burning through the dormitory that accommodated Primary 1 and Primary 2 pupils. 3 pupils were rescued in critical condition. They were taken to a hospital and are being treated. Several parents were blocked from accessing the school as they rushed to pick their children that survived.
So we are employing the police to take on the investigations, to see what caused the fire, and we sympathize with the families.
In a similar incident in Chotera, about 170 kilometers from the capital, another pupil was reported dead in a fire that gutted the boys' dormitory. The fires occurred barely a week after schools reopened following 2 years of closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The incidents will be a major concern for both authorities and parents ahead of a 14-weeks-long school term. Leon Senyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
You're watching Africa Live. We'll see you on the other side of the break with more news stories. Don't go away. Somalia repatriates over 90 detained migrants from Libya. And Uganda begins door-to-door polio vaccine campaign targeting 8 million children under 5.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Syria,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. Somalia and the United Nations Migration Agency have facilitated the return of 97 citizens after more than 2 years in detention centers in Libya. More than 100 others are expected to be repatriated back home in the coming weeks. Mohammed Kahaya has the details from Mogadishu.
With the help from International Organization for Migration, the Somali citizens were brought back home from North African state of Libya following years of detention. They were arrested while trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe. They are happy back home after years of confinement.
I was in jail for 2 years. They used to torture people inside the prison and ask for ransoms of more than $5,000.
Others thanked Somali leadership for their freedom.
I cannot express my feelings today because I was in jail for 2 years and 4 months in Libya, and I appreciate Somali people and the leadership for their efforts to freedom from torture in jail and bring us home.
The Somali Foreign Affairs Ministry said another 100 citizens are expected to be released from Libyan detention, where they will be repatriated.
Last month, our president met with his Libyan counterpart in Turkey, and they agreed to fast-track the freedom of Somali citizens held in Libyan jails. This is the first batch after COVID-19 pandemic, and we expect to bring other citizens back home in the coming weeks.
According to Somali government, more than 2,500 Somalis have been repatriated from countries like Libya, India, Tanzania, Eritrea, and Sudan since 2018. Mohamed Kahia, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Nigeria has reported nearly 400 cases of circulating mutant poliovirus type 2 across 27 of its 36 states. Health authorities in a statement said the outbreak is as a result of immunity gaps in children fueled by the coronavirus pandemic. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam reports.
The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency says the mutant poliovirus type 2 is predominantly in communities with poor sanitation, contaminated water, and poor sewage disposal. The virus causes paralysis in children from 5 and below. Nigeria was certified polio-free in August of 2020 after marking 3 consecutive years since the last case of wild polio was identified.
If we're able to eradicate a more serious one, which is the wild polio virus, we should be able to eradicate the one that is not as virulent as the one we're able to eradicate. Any form of polio virus, they actually behave in similar way. You understand? They can all make children under 5, basically. In this case, prevention is top-notch, and we really need all hands needs to be on deck. Immunization is key, and we should not allow COVID. We know COVID is out there, but we should not allow COVID to continue to create gap that will now prevent people, from getting the adequate vaccine that they need, so that this can actually be taken care of.
Nigeria says it's working with donors and development partners to contain the spread of the virus. Government has already begun administering the oral polio vaccine, which has been effective in halting the spread. It's also ramping up efforts to increase immunization cover. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Uganda is carrying out door-to-door vaccination campaigns against polio. The campaign will see over 8 million children under 5 years of age vaccinated in just 3 days. In August last year, Ugandan scientists detected the polio virus in the capital's sewage system. CGTN's Hilary Ayasega reports.
David Cheze contracted polio at the age of 15. The disease crippled both his legs.
I was playing on the field and I felt feverish. The next thing, I was hospitalized for a while. The disease then crippled my legs and also affected my eyesight.
Cheze says after diagnosis, doctors told him that he had contracted polio, but they managed to save his life from the deadly virus.
I missed out on vaccination during my early years. If I had been vaccinated, I wouldn't be suffering like this.
Cheze has since become a street beggar. Polio is spread through eating contaminated food and can lead to lifetime paralysis. Patients with polio show signs of flu and high fevers, but in 10% of cases, it weakens the nerves in the limbs, causing permanent paralysis or even death. Ugandan scientists say the resurgence of polio is due to reduced routine immunization. They've now embarked on a door-to-door vaccination campaign to get rid of the virus. Children are being given 2 doses to boost their immunity against the virus.
And we are starting today, and we are ensuring by the end of our exercise, towards the next one, we shall kick polio out of Uganda.
The World Health Organization has listed polio as one of the diseases targeted for eradication, and health systems globally are carrying out surveillance to detect its resurgence.
It is targeted to vaccinate almost 8.8 million under 5s. This is a massive task, but for Uganda, I believe it is not. Uganda can achieve great numbers of vaccination.
And as the country takes measures to wipe out the virus, Cheze is urging parents to take their children for vaccination so that they may not suffer long-term effects of the virus like him. Hilary Ayasega, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
And we're not done just yet. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Here's what's ahead. In sports, Egypt eyeing first win at the Africa Cup of Nations when they face Guinea-Bissau.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca,